Hello there, geeks and gamers. I'm MarcTheCyborg, and today I'd like to talk to you about a game I've been playing which I think will blow your mind. Mick Gordon, you know what to do. Doom Eternal evolves the gameplay sandbox of the 2016 Doom reboot in so many incredible ways. As much as I love the super shotgun, it's no longer the objectively sharpest tool in your shed. In Eternal, every weapon, weapon mod, and special ability has a useful purpose, and on ultraviolence difficulty, utilizing everything in your bag of tricks will be necessary. In my recent review of Doom 2016, I explained how health and ammo procurement is tied to two specific types of melee kill. The glory kills and chainsaw kills from 2016 return in Eternal, and they still replenish your health and ammo respectively. However, now every time you perform a glory kill, you'll charge up a powerful melee attack called a Blood Punch, which does heavy damage to a single enemy and sends a shockwave out, which damages anything else nearby. The chainsaw kills work more or less the same, with different quantities of fuel being required to make it useful on different strengths of enemy, but there's one key difference which makes it much easier to get your Leatherface on. 1 bar of fuel will regenerate over time. This means that it won't be much more than 30 seconds before you'll be able to take out another low-level enemy, giving you a moment of respite during combat, as well as a modest supply of ammo added to your reserves. This is important because even after a few upgrades, your overall pool of ammo is much lower than it was in the previous game. While this seemed frustrating at first, it wasn't long before I realized that it kept me engaged in the loop of shoot with one weapon, switch to another weapon until it's dry, switch to another weapon and repeat, then find a small guy and chainsaw kill him. One of the new additions to the sandbox, and one which changes the recovery system in the game in a massive way, is the Flame Belch. Not long into the game, the Doomslayer acquires a shoulder-mounted launcher which can fire 2 types of grenades as well as a burst of flame called the Flame Belch. When an enemy is set ablaze, doing any damage to them will produce armor power-ups for the player, which make armor a replenishable resource in Eternal. In Doom 2016, armor could only be acquired through in-world pickups, meaning that if you found yourself in a lengthy, difficult arena battle, you couldn't bank on armor to give you anything other than a temporary advantage. In Eternal, replenishing your armor with a Flame Belch is far more reliable than damaging an enemy to the precise amount which will open up a window for a glory kill, so I found myself relying on regenerating my armor much more than even regenerating my health. The Flame Belch, Frag Grenade, and Ice Grenade are all on cooldowns too, so you never have to worry about being totally deprived of them. All it takes in order to use any of them again is time. Speaking of the Ice Grenade, it is also spectacularly useful. It doesn't do any damage, but it freezes nearly every enemy in its tracks for a few seconds. Late in the game, I figured out that one of the best ways to recover was to use the fire and ice combo, as I called it. You launch an ice grenade at a group of enemies, light the frozen bodies on fire, then fire a rocket at them, creating a shower of armor pickups. You can even do this on a single large enemy. Even if you don't kill him, the armor generated by doing damage to the flaming target can put you in a better position to stay in the fight if you find yourself low on health and armor. The tool set isn't the only thing in Eternal which has been expanded, as the mobility and traversal have been given a few significant upgrades as well, the most game-changing of which is the dash. Similar to the dash found in Shadow Warrior 2, Elderborn, Bright Memory, and Get to the Orange Door, in Doom Eternal, hitting shift will let you dash a few meters in the direction you're moving. This works in the air as well and is necessary for traversing many of the game's jumping puzzles. It's also extremely useful during combat. You have 2 charges of the dash before a short cooldown, so you can't zoom around the map indefinitely, but it can certainly help give you some breathing room, pull off a clutch dodge, or close the gap between yourself and an enemy you've prepped for a glory kill. The double jump returns and functions basically the same as it did in the last game, but the most notable change is that you begin the game with it in your arsenal, so you don't have to worry about unlocking it. Combining double jumps and air dashes is so much fun. The final 2 traversal additions are the swing bars and the climbable walls. The walls essentially play no role in combat, as when you're stuck to one you're completely unable to attack, but the swing bars can certainly be used to traverse a battlefield in the middle of a fight. The jump puzzles in the game are numerous, and once you get into the rhythm of mixing up jumps, swings, wall grabs, air dashes, and ledge mantles, it makes exploring for secrets a ton of fun. Speaking of secrets, there are a lot of them in Doom Eternal. Most are easy to spot but difficult to get to, and require you to figure out both where the path is and how to navigate it. Some of the secrets are simple collectibles like action figures of the various monsters in the game, or vinyl albums of songs from id Software games, including the track which Dust composer Andrew Holsholt made with Chris Brenna for Quake Champions. Holsholt is one of my favorites, the undisputed king of boomer shooter soundtracks, and you'll often hear his music in the background of my videos, so it's super cool that he was included in id's flagship game. 2 of the other secret types are not collectibles but hidden battles. The first are the secret encounters. These fights are very short, timed battles, and while some are very simple, others seem nearly impossible. However, the impossible ones often have a lesson to teach you about which enemies are weak to which weapons. The 30-second encounter against the Marauder, for example, taught me that this super difficult boss character could be felled very quickly if you use the ballista and hit him in the head. The secret encounters reward you with an upgrade, but before we talk about the progression system, we've got one more secret to talk about, the Slayer Gates. The Slayer Gates are two-part secrets which involve finding a key, then finding a gate to use the key on. Usually finding the gate isn't a problem, but the keys take a bit of doing. Once you unlock the gates, you're confronted with 6 of the most intense encounters in the game. All are in small arenas and will involve quick reflexes, deep understanding of the mechanics, and thoughtful strategy. Finishing a Slayer Gate challenge rewards you with an Empyrean key, and when you have all 6, you can unlock a secret, powerful weapon. And is there anything a Doomslayer needs other than
guns? Lots of guns.
All of the weapons in Doom Eternal serve a purpose, so the effectively useless pistol from Doom sits this one out. Officially at least. Apparently it is in the game code, but was removed because it broke the flow of combat. From the game's outset, you have the combat shotgun, and within minutes of the game beginning, you're given both mods for it. The first being the sticky grenade launcher, which is not only useful at dealing moderate splash damage to groups, but incredible for taking out Arachnotron turrets, Revenant shoulder cannons, and Mancubus arm guns. Because dynamic enemy weapon destruction is a thing in Eternal, but the most valuable function is that it can stagger a Cacodemon in one hit if you shoot it in the mouth. The other mod is a full auto mode, which looks awesome, but it burns your ammo so fast that I didn't find myself using it much past the first level. Next up, the heavy machine gun returns, and while the micro missiles work the same as they did in the last game, the aim down sights mod has been altered and now turns the machine gun into a powerful sniper rifle. The precision bolt is absolutely the mod to go with, as it'll assist with knocking off enemy weapons and is invaluable for pegging Maker Drone headshots in the game's penultimate mission. Aw, who's a cute little ammo pinata? The plasma rifle's design returns to its look from the original Doom games and is now spectacular for quickly taking down the shield dudes, which is good news because I still hate those shield dudes. When you hit their shield with the plasma rifle a few times, their shields will explode, killing them instantly and dealing splash damage to anyone else in the area. This move can also be used to destroy the shields generated by the new enemy known as the Carcass, who throws shields in front of his fellow monsters. The first mod for the plasma rifle is a Ghostbuster proton pack beam which makes enemies explode, though I found this both took too long and used too much ammo. The second is the much more useful Heat Blast, which when you earn the mastery for it, makes the plasma rifle one of the best weapons in the game. With this mastery, when you use a fully charged Heat Blast, you'll overcharge the damage output of the plasma rifle for a limited amount of time, which is invaluable against the Doom Hunter, who's a new boss enemy that becomes a standard enemy shortly afterwards. This is a thing which happens in this game a couple times. Next we have the rocket launcher, which fires more slowly than it did in the previous game, but the lock target function is great at taking out Revenants, Arachnotrons, and the new snake lady known as the Whiplash.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Next we come to the weapon I would marry if it were legal in Canada, my sweet, sexy, super shotgun. My lady love has been nerfed a bit in Doom Eternal for the purpose of weapon balancing, so the mastery perk is no longer the ultra high damage double shot, but what she lacks in base functionality, she gains in the form of a new attachment called the Meat Hook. The Meat Hook can be fired at any enemy within medium range and grapples you towards it, bringing you into ideal super shotgun range. Once you earn the mastery for it, which you should do as soon as humanly possible, the chain sets enemies on fire for a brief window of time, which like the Flame Belch allow you to farm armor pickups, effectively making my baby one of the best healing tools in the game. The Bastila takes over for the Gauss Cannon in this game as your railgun-like long-range precision weapon. Instead of the Gauss Cannon Siege mode, which locked you into one spot, the Bastila's charge mod simply slows you down and then lets you fire a wide arc blade which can chop distant enemies in half in a very satisfying manner. The chain gun returns and thankfully has been made much more powerful this time around. One of the mods is a front shield, but I rarely use this because enemies so often end up behind you that it was only useful on very specific and rare occasions. The tri-barrel turret mode returns and is a great damage dealer even at range and is very helpful against the game's final boss. Finally, we have the three big boys, the first of which is the classic BFG 9000. The BFG is also extremely useful against the giant final boss, and while ammo for it isn't quite as common as it was in the last game, it'll definitely help during the Slayer Gate encounters, particularly the one which has an Archvile. Archviles cause a lot of problems with the resurrection powers, and they are quite hard to kill, but with the BFG...
Got a good spread. In fact, you got a problem over here, you ain't even gotta look, you just turn, wow, that's it! You ain't got a problem over here anymore?
You eventually earn the Crucible Blade, which is a sword that can kill any enemy in one hit. Like the BFG, a special ammo pickup is required to use it, and the most you can hold are 3 charges, so you've got to use them wisely. However, in the final battle, these pickups are effectively unlimited, so while you're being attacked by a never-ending onslaught of enemies, if you stay mobile and keep the Crucible Blade charged, these mobs are nothing but a temporary distraction. Rip and tear. The last weapon is the Unmaker, which is your reward for completing all the Slayer Gate challenges. The Unmaker was introduced in Doom 64 and makes its sophomore appearance here. It is a very powerful, rapid-fire weapon which easily cuts through most enemies. The downside is that it shares ammo with the BFG, and the big dog is more effective than the Shake and Unmake, so despite the hard work I put in to earn it, I found I didn't really use it often. Each of the weapons or mod paths can be upgraded with weapon points, which are earned by completing both regular and secret encounters, and that is one of the many upgrade systems in the game. The most basic are the upgrade crystals, which upgrade either health, armor, or ammo. Each level gives you 2 options of the 3, and if you choose 2 on the same level, it will unlock a perk. The Flame Belch perks on this tree are extremely useful, so I would recommend upgrading those at your earliest opportunity. Scattered throughout the environment are Sentinel Wraiths who hold medallions which can be used to upgrade your Praetor suit. There are very valuable mobility perks, upgrades for both your grenades and your map, as well as ways to make explosive barrels in the environment more useful to you in combat. The final perk system are the runes, which return from Doom, though instead of having to complete a challenge to earn them, you only need to find them in the environment. You can equip 3 at a time, but one of them is so valuable and makes the challenge on Ultraviolence so much more manageable that I recommend it, although the community is bound to think of it as the cheese perk. The rune in question lets you slow down time while holding down the alternate fire button, which means your combat shotgun grenades, precision bolts, and most importantly your meat hook, throw the game into bullet time and let you pull off some serious pro gamer moves, without having the reflexes of an amphetamine-powered ferret. I've heard the argument made that the game is bogged down with too many progression systems to keep track of, but the way I see it, the little boosts to your power offer incentive to explore for hidden items, fight in the secret encounters, and overall just spend more time with the game. Any mission can be booted up again so you can find items you've missed, and if you discover the floppy disk cheat codes, they can be activated anytime you replay a mission. This will flatten out the difficulty a bit, but will also disable the Slayer Gate, so if you're trying to hunt down the Unmaker, don't try to cheat or you'll find you've wasted your time. The story in Doom Eternal steps into the spotlight a bit more than it was in Doom, but still takes a backseat to the gameplay. There are codex cards all over the game, so similar to Destiny's Grimoire system, the lore and backstory are there if you want to hunt for it, but many will be disappointed that there is a huge plot gap between Doom and Doom Eternal, which is not explained on the game's critical path, and from what I could tell, it's not explained in the codex cards either. You end Doom with the Crucible being stolen by Samuel Hayden and the Doomslayer being stuck on Mars, but you begin Doom Eternal with a space station fortress orbiting Earth, which is essentially the Watchtower from Justice League, and are already in the process of hunting down the 3 Hell Priests which make up the bulk of the game. From a writing perspective, this is just poor, as even a basic explanation of how this happened in-game would help, though I kind of understand that id Software didn't want to waste too much time getting into the action. There is certainly enough content in the lore for enterprising YouTubers and fan artists to start a career making Doom Eternal Explained videos like what VatiVidya does for Dark Souls or My Name is Bife does for Destiny. I'm not the guy though, my Canadian accent isn't nearly sexy enough to be as compelling as those Brits. But maybe we can get the long man to do it if he ever finishes the TFA critique.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen.
The more glaring issue I have with the game is something which I hope is temporary, and that is the integration of Bethesda.net servers. The campaign was intended to have an invasion system similar to Dark Souls, in which another player can hop into your campaign and fight you. But I not only have no experience with this feature because it never worked, but Bethesda's servers kept trying and failing to connect me. Ordinarily this would be fine, particularly during launch weekend, but only if there was an option to turn off online functionality in the menu. As far as I could tell, no such options existed at the time I played, so I'd be in the heat of battle when suddenly my game would kick me to the menu, give me a server error, which I'd then have to cancel out of before resuming the fight. This didn't break the game, but it certainly broke the immersion at times, certainly broke the flow of combat when it happened during an intense battle, and it could have been fixed with a simple play Doom Eternal in offline mode option. Another downside is that there are a few battles in the game which make you fight in this purple goo that slows your movement speed to a crawl, and while I understand the desire to give the player a handicap to overcome, none of these sections were anything resembling fun. Luckily these sections are few, but if I were to call any aspect of the gameplay bad, it would definitely be the purple goo segments. I've heard many people complain about the swimming levels, but these are short puzzle segments with no enemies which are over in minutes, so personally I didn't really have a problem with them. The last thing I want to talk about are the technical aspects of this game, and man, there are things to say. I played on PC and was running the game in 1080p so that I could have the game locked at 165 frames a second at ultra settings, and I honestly don't remember ever seeing a game look this good. The new version of the id Tech engine looks insane and is complemented very nicely by Doom Eternal's art direction and color palette. The previous game was criticized for many of the levels looking the same, with even Mars and Hell having fairly similar appearances, but Doom Eternal does not have this problem. From the bombed out city streets of Earth, the futuristic Arctic cultist base, to the fantasy vibe of Taras Navad, to the hard sci-fi style of Urdok, this game certainly does not lack visual variety. The animations, however, are the star of the show. The sheer number and creativity of the glory kills are staggering, with each one feeling like a bite-sized Mortal Kombat fatality. They never really stop looking impressive. As for the sound, the guns all sound fantastic, adding weight and impact to the experience of shooting, and each monster has distinct sounds which can help you manage the crowds of enemies you'll be taking on, even when you aren't looking directly at them. But the music is the real hero. Mick Gordon's score is a great mix of industrial metal and ambient horror soundscapes, which really add a lot to the game's tone. It makes the environment seem scary when you're creeping through them, but when the battles kick off, the heavy guitar riffs remind you that you aren't trapped in a game full of demons. The demons are trapped in a game with you.
I'm not locked in here with you.
That's it! You're locked in here with me!
In case it's not abundantly clear, I had an incredible time with Doom Eternal and recommend it very highly. If it weren't for Cyberpunk 2077 coming out in September, I'd all but guarantee this is my game of the year. The visuals, sound, performance, traversal, progression systems, and most of all, the core first-person shooter combat and strategic combat sandbox are all absolutely incredible, and despite the awkward storytelling and hopefully temporary interruptions from Bethesda.net's servers, Doom Eternal is a game of unbridled awesomeness.